Hey, Nalin, good afternoon. Welcome to the podcast of Let's Figure It Out. Thank you so much for taking the time from your busy schedule. I would like to start with how are you today?
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. Doing very well. Thanks for having me, Jeet. And looking forward to chatting today.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Nalin, for the audience, could you tell us a bit more about yourself and a little bit about your background?
Sure. I am Nalin, co-founder and CEO of Storylane. Storylane is a product demo platform. I started this company close to 4 years back. We went through YC and we started it. We're close to 50 people company, fully remote, working on it. Prior to Storylane, I had another startup which we sold it to a private equity firm, and then before that also another startup. So my background primarily has been on the tech. I've been the CTO for a few startups, and then grew up in India. Came here for my grad school, and then lot more passionate around like R&D side of things when I started out my career, and then kind of jumped through the hoops from tech now to selling, and now as an entrepreneur, now founding. And very less of tech I do, but always the tech is something that can't go away, right? Today as well.
Yeah, no, that's really fascinating, and we can definitely we'll dive more a bit about all of your startups.
Sure.
But would love to rewind a bit, and like you just mentioned about majority of your time was into this tech startup. So where did this interest in tech and building things really begin with?
Yeah, I think after my undergrad itself, right, I did like this is back in 2004. My thought was like we started doing more on computer vision, machine learning at the time. Back in the time, it's like very, very niche. I enjoyed that a lot. And then I worked in companies in Bangalore for 2, 3 years, which specialize in this as well. My goal was to always to come to do research or PhD in these areas only because that's what I was very passionate about. The moment I came to the US, and then 2008 is when I graduated out from grad school, and then the market was pretty bad at that time. And then I felt like, and I didn't want to do like continue the PhD side and all, but I said like, hey, the US gave me an understanding of like there's so much startup here. It's not just the big companies and everything. So when I moved to the Bay Area, it just kind of opened the eyes. And then, but at that time, with the visas and everything, financial market being in this way, so I wanted to find a place where I could land myself and be comfortable first. So I joined Amazon at that point. But Amazon was good for 1.5 years. I spent some time. I felt like that's the time I need to be in a startup and do something. And then being in the Bay Area, surrounded by so many companies, you hear them. I went to the meetup. Back then there used to be meetup.com. Maybe they're still there. I don't use them too much, but then meetup.com, and then that was very famous then. So every evening you just like walk into some meetups, meet some random people, and connect, and then physically and understand what they're doing. So a lot of meetups I went in the Bay Area, and people were just coming in and pitching startup ideas. I was like, "What is this?" I mean, like it's something new. I mean, I haven't experienced this when I'm in India. That gave me a little bit of like, "What am I doing?" kind of company like there are people coming and pitching some ideas. That's when the iPhones came out. So many startups people were building on the phone, mobile app. I mean, if you remember 2009 and 2010, everybody wanted to build a mobile app, and that was a startup. And those meetups, every idea will become, how do I find restaurants? How do I find this place to eat? There's so many different ideas were coming out. And at that time in Amazon, I was also building something on mobile only. So we built a computer vision related mobile app, like Amazon's app, some of the functionalities there. I can talk more about it. But then I felt like, hey, I need to go build something now. So that's basically where it started into startups. And then it ran into some challenges of that, but I'll talk more. But I think the point is that's the trigger point for me when I went to these meetings and saw people pitching. I'm like, we need to do something now.
Yeah, no, completely agree. And it's more like when you start reaching out people or when you start meet with other people, you sort of like find that big gap. Like, hey, I am on my way to do something, but I don't know where to start with. And I think that's what the meetup groups did for you, like giving you that direction of like, I should be thinking in this direction for the mobile app and where the whole sort of like cohort is going. So uh, you mentioned about your tech career in one of the big giant, and which was at that time I think under 15 years of startup, Amazon. So what were those few first like professional years like, especially overall when we consider the time at Amazon?
Yeah. So Amazon, when I joined, mobile phones came up. Amazon launched this Amazon mobile app in 2008 and everything, and they wanted to do shopping on the mobile through mobile.
Hmm.
So what I did is like there is even today, if you open a mobile app and then Amazon mobile app, you can go click on a camera icon on the top instead of searching. It will start doing a visual search. It will scan through things, find things, and put a shopping buy button there. So that was what we were building at that time. So it was fun because you were building something cool tech on a mobile, a device that just came out, and now there's not like all the SDKs available at that time, everything. So you need to go write some assemblies, ARM code to make it work really optimized very well. It was fun and I enjoyed the round of years, but I felt like there's a lot more we can do and it was not too challenging enough still, right? It was felt like you could get the job done, it's good, but there's a lot of bureaucracy in terms of launching something also and everything. So startups was, and again, going to meetups and all attracted it. So that was my career there. And then just after that, I wanted to find a company where I can take what I've learned in mobile. There was a company called Dacry at that time. They were building AR on the phones. So I said like, hey, now whatever I learned on the mobile with Amazon, I can take this and expand this more, not just put a buy button. Can I make it more an augmented reality through the phones as well? So it kind of my journey started there. So I started on tech side fully, and I'm engineer, computer vision engineer, so focus a lot more around those things and continue with that direction there.
Got it. That's amazing. So you actually learned something from Amazon and took that as a learning and put it
Yeah.
into a new project to work with. You said Darky
Daiquiri,
or Dacry.
Daqri, Daiquiri.
Okay.
They're not there anymore. So I joined them as a CTO there, and then
Okay.
there were two founders. I joined them, and one of the challenges I had for joining a startup was I wanted to join a very early startup, also because I can't start a company because I was on a visa. So which means like I need someone who can sponsor me and take me in, and I wanted to still be early because so that I can own the tech, right? So it came by, and I met them through one of the meetups again, like, and then I said like, sure, I'll join you, and then this is my constraints, and I want to join. All I wanted was like I just wanted to join somewhere and build something, right? That's all it was. And then and it worked very well because I built the same thing in Amazon. I said like, hey, I saw the vision of building from mobile. I can go build a hardware later. So what we ended up doing was from mobile, we went and built a wearable glass as well in a Daiquiri. We raised a lot of money.
Hmm.
We built that for industrial workers. So think of augmented reality through your wearable glasses. So it was good. So we raised a lot of capital, had a big team of around 100, people in the Bay Area. So we built the team. We just were early to the market. So, and then we shut it down. And there's a lot of learning from there.
Yeah, I'm sure because I think that even though you were on a visa, but that gives you that experience of like how to run a startup or what are the challenges come along with the startup. And then I think so from there, I think you started your first own startup. So would love to know a little bit more about like what was the idea and what are the
Yeah.
challenges you faced as a first time founder owning your own thing.
Yeah, and I'll tell you that. So just when in Daiquiri, when I was doing this, we spent around 5 to 6 years there, and basically, and then building the hardware. So my point was, at some point, the company was big enough in Daiquiri, and then I felt like, hey, I need to think about like I felt like I want to do something more, right? A little bit again. So then I met my current co-founder. So our kids went to the same preschool at that time. That was preschool
Hmm.
then, right? They went to the same preschool. And then he started this company at that point, saying that it's called Kinderline. It was in the early education market. He started the company again, modernizing that from a preschool management, school management, back office, and mobile, better way to connect with parents. It was a SaaS platform that he wanted to build out. So I was helping, advising for a year, and then we felt like it was good. So he needed some technical help again from a technologist perspective. I was helping him out for a year, and then after I wanted to exit out of Daiquiri, he said like it's not going anywhere. So we transitioned out. So I joined full time into him at that point, and then we built it. The reason why I started it is like because like we kind of saw the problem when our kids were going, and there are lessons I learned from Daiquiri is like we built the coolest tech, AR wearables and everything, but there's nobody to buy. That's when you learn, right? After 5 years you work hard, and then like you focused on building a tech that didn't exist in the world, and you built something great, good, with a strong core team, but then nobody to buy it. Then I started asking, like, why did it fail, right? Everything was done right. Then from a technologies, you need to start looking at like a product side, sales side. That's kind of gave me an exposure that this is like things that I didn't control, and I didn't know what is a product market fit. I just built the cool tech, but now I left it to a product person. I left it to the CEOs. I left it to the business side of things, and we lost it. So I wanted to be owning things where it's not the tech. Tech is the easier part. I felt more confident about it. I wanted to understand the sales side, product side, and everything. The best way to do that is when you build your own company, go into that direction. So I felt like this new company, even though the tech wasn't super like an AR, but it gave me a foundation to go talk to customers quickly, understand it. So kind of led to that and started building that, and we saw a good traction. So we continued along there quickly.
That's so good because you just explained something which is like, even though you had your whole background with the building the tech, but there is the other side. Like, you can build cool stuff, but what if you cannot sell it because you don't know the product market fit, you don't know the what's the TAM looks like, or who is my actual consumer who's going to pay me, or the customer who's going to pay me. And that's the other goal you started sort of like learning in that direction of how I can be a good salesman, because I know how to build, but how can I can be a good salesman, or at least understand my customer. Okay,
100%.
that's amazing. So, uh, what were the early challenges when, let's say, and this is a general sort of like understanding I want to learn based on your experience with the startups, like early challenges for a founder, like, is it raising the funds, is it more like managing the team, is it more hiring, what are the biggest challenges?
I think if I go back from my background, I'll tell you, if you are a technical founder, the biggest bottleneck you need to take out from is like, don't focus too much on the tech, focus on selling business side, product side as well. Who's going to buy? I learned this after 5 years, right, where I spent my company. It's no doubt there's a fantastic learning on the tech side, right? I learned team, how to build a team. We had a 100 people team. I learned a lot of other things. But I think the biggest hurdle is we didn't unlock the side of the buyer, the customer, the pain point, talking to them, selling it yourself. That's my biggest learning. And anytime I meet a founder, I tell them that always now, is like, hey, here is the reason why I tell my story. Sometimes when I talk to, I do talk to many early stage founders now, a
Hmm.
couple of times or once a week, and I talk to them and I tell this first thing. So that's my biggest, I would say. Everything else follows after that, because I meet mostly tech founders, because most of the tech founders is where I really connect more with them. They reach out, and when we talk more about it. So that's my number one being there.
That's a good point, because sometimes we are just stick on, like, when it comes to innovation we are stick to our idea, like my idea is just a product side,
Yeah,
but sometimes it's just for that 1% or a very minimal amount of people around the world. But if you don't understand the majority of people what biggest problem they are having, and if you're not able to solve that, even though how cool your tech is, if it's not a right fit, if it's not going to sell. So I
that is true.
completely agree that you need to, even though you're creative, you need to still learn that who is your customer. So
Yes, it's easier said. Everybody preaches who is your customer, but nobody gives a practical advice how do you do it. And I'll tell you that also. So when I talk to that's what I talk about. Like, look, I'm not preaching, and you will see this everywhere written, everywhere books. Everybody talks about that. Like, but the point is, practically, how do you do it is important now. That's the key. Yeah.
that is true. And I've also heard from founders, like, even though you're building something and you're just rolling things out, always listen to your customers in your early days, because they will tell you what they need, so that you don't create something which they don't need by just in your own zone, but you can create something by solving the actual problem what the customers are facing.
Right. Yep. Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
That's true.
So now let's dive into Storylane. So I'm definitely very curious to know about how did it all start, and if you can drive us through like how you begin with this idea, and what were the early challenges, or like some early customers, if you, or stories you can share.
Sure. I think I kind of told you a little bit of transition from a tech, a little bit like, hey, I want to be part of a company where I kind of own the business side of things, product, and I want to sell. So the moment you start selling, you started seeing problems around selling. I'll tell you the business side of things, and a lot of ways that started, and it got started. It led to Storylane, and I
Mhm.
think I wouldn't say that's the only reason, because you saw in selling there was a challenges, and then I felt like there's got to be a better way to start showing your product and where it led to. And in my previous company, when we built it, there was one of our competitors at that time, like previous startup I'm talking about, who built their own homegrown Storyline version, right? Like they built like with an engineering team, they built their own demo environment and put it up on the websites or shared this. I always found like cool. I mean, they spent a lot of effort to build this, right? I felt it. Then after I exited my previous startup, I felt like there was challenges, and I
Mhm.
saw somebody homegrown built it with the team, engineering team and all. I felt like, why can't we make it as a platform, subscription automation? Because I saw two trends. One is SaaS market is constantly increasing, which means like more and more companies are going to continue to build. There's more coming up, right? Every category, every product, buyers will have not just one or two options, 10 options. That's going to continue to expand, which means more companies, more options. The problem for a buyer is always to find out what to buy from these 10 options. Now, that's where Storyline comes in. How do you make it simple and easy for your buyer to make a decision? And how do I make it easy for a seller to sell the right product to them, right? To showcase the value to them. We felt like there's a gap there. So that's what we're trying to fix here. So that, like, hey, how do you tell what your product is doing, a good stories about it to your buyers, and buyers are able to narrow it down and understand like exactly the value prop as well. Look, after AI, instead of 10, it becomes every category has 20 companies now. Everybody can build startups even more faster. So I didn't expect that, but now it's accelerated it. And that caused more demand in some ways for products like Storylane, because buyers have this confusion. And I've shared this in some of the conferences. Any buyer today, right, spends a lot more time and money to buy a software than actual cost of the software itself today. So a lot of times they have a buying committee to spend too much time and money to buy something. But if you look at it, the software costs less than that, the amount of time and money they spend to buy it.
So
And
true.
this is a problem. They're not realizing it. And I think we need to make that simple and easy. So that's our vision of making it easy for Storyline, to make it easy for people.
That is so true because I agree. If software piece is, let's say, 20K, I'm just throwing a number, the time and energy employees are putting, or the whole team is going with the evaluation back and forth, it's more than double the amount of software cost. And agreed. If all you need is the value or like the problem you're trying to solve, if you're able to understand through a quick demonstration or quick story, that's all you need to make that decision rather than going back and forth and having exchanging emails. So great product. And coming from a solution engineering background, I'm at
Yeah.
Salesforce, so I can completely relate this because I talk to customers on a daily
Sure.
basis to
Yeah.
explain that value to the customer, that what the product can do. uh, tell me about some of their early days customer stories with Storyline. How do you pitch it? And because I'm asking from, there are lots of listeners who are in a similar boat, like who are either trying to do something, and with this AI sort of wave, a lot of people are like, hey, I want to build something. But again, going back to those principles is like, how can I start reaching out to those customers? How can I start reaching out to the VCs? So what are the sort of like advice you could give in that direction?
Sure, there are a few things in what you asked. So I think early days of Storyline is like we went to YC in summer 21, so Y Combinator. So it wasn't our intention to apply. So we came across it in the last couple of days. We said like, hey, why not? Because we're going to be in startups. We're going to build this for not just for Storyline, but whatever I build in the next 20 years is going to be in startup world. So YC is great network of people around, so alumni network. So we said like, let's go into YC. We applied. We got in, which is great. It was fantastic. It was during COVID, but it was remote. Still, it was great.
Mhm.
So I think that helped in building that like seriousness into quickly to build out, definitely, and it gave a lot of insights around like through networks and peers within YC itself. Now, when we graduated out of YC, it's not like we had like a fully ready product or we had like paying customers, hardly anything there. So it then the best way for us was to do is I would say is like reach out, cold outbound reach out. What we did is like simple, co-founders, very simple is like keep a target of sending like 20 LinkedIn connections every day, maximize this LinkedIn messages. I think everybody talks about it, but I think it's more about like you have to do this for 3 months every day, right? I mean, the point is execution matters, right? Like do this every day and you will get some returns, and find the ICP, keep filtering it and hitting it. So we did that, and that's how we got a lot of our initial set of customers. There's no magic bullet to these things. Like you can't like find a way to it. Yeah, it'll be fantastic if somebody refers you, and we did get some referrals like that. Initially, we made a mistake of selling to IC companies. I mean, look, I think our product fits very well with slightly larger companies rather than like a
Hmm.
very early stage startups. And then we spent some time. Then we figured out like, hey, we need to go into slightly more up market as well there. And then it's not these startups coming out will use us, right? And
Yeah.
YC does this to you because there's a very common thing is, hey, I'm talking to 10 people in my group. Let me sell them first, right? So no matter how many times you do, I mean, even if you repeat for it, you can make the same mistake. I mean, there's nobody will be like prone to like your the number of mistakes reduces. That's about it, right? Or the cross how you cross correct quickly matters now, right? That's it, right? So immediately we cross corrected, and we figured out like we have to sell to other set of people, and we have to do the traditional outbound reach out and everything. So I do recommend people do that, and then through a network of friends, somewhere here and there, connections, LinkedIn referrals, we got them. I think our first biggest customer came in was Nutanix, who started using us towards end of 2021. I think when we say big customer is like a validation for us, like a public company
Absolutely.
IPO'd, who's in the Nasdaq, like buys you and uses it, and we went through security. That's when we felt like, okay, there is clearly we can make this work with bigger companies also. You need that validation, and I really clearly remember that sense of proof was like in, I think it was almost January 2022 when we first got that. So that's the time. So you just get the feeling, right? And that only happens when you win the bigger accounts slightly, not the startups. To me, that was a critical point for me. Afterwards, we were like, hey, let's repeat this now. Like we got it somewhere. We felt it.
That's a great point. So once you get in and get validated from a big customer, you actually get more confidence, more motivation, and the team is boosted now. So like now they're gonna try to reach out to majority of those customers. Uh, so yeah, that's a really great advice in terms of like reaching out, cold emails. I think that's something which is happening since last many years, and it's not gonna change. Which is
Yeah.
actually the first thing every founder should be doing. What is the culture you're trying to build at Storyline from a team perspective?
Well, good. So culture for us is like we're being very transparent, open, and then we want to keep a bar where it is like a high, so that we bring in people who are smarter. Bar is very high, so that we constantly keep learning. So the goal here is like when I hire, when you bring in new people, it's more than the current skill set. I'll always look for is like his appetite to learn something in the next 3 months, 6 months. I think that is more important because everybody brings the current skill set, but it will change. Like the way things are moving fast, and you need to change. Like it's the appetite to learn is basically what I like to look for. And one of the things we talk in the company a lot more in the all hands and everything is, are you scaling up yourself? Right? That's the culture I like to bring in. So when I say are you scaling up, it's more like it's more like how did you skill up yourself? Right? What are the new things you're learning? Because people like to be challenged in general. People like to learn new things. They don't want to be static like in one place, not learning,
Absolutely.
doing the same thing. No matter what, you need to learn something so that you feel like you're moving, right? And that is very important. It helps the company to grow, it helps personally to grow. So my job is to align your personal growth with the company goal. So the culture is built on that, as simple as that for us at this point. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great mindset. I think if the individual is growing, then obviously it's going to help the individual to stay in that environment, as well as it's going to boost up the company's overall growth as well. That's a great way to put in. So what's next for Storyline in the next 5 years?
I look for next. I have a roadmap to talk about 3 months because things change fast, and we have to be focused on that. That's how we look at it. I don't think anybody can say a roadmap for 5 years, but the way I look at it is like it can be three or two or one. Doesn't matter the time.
Sure.
I think the larger picture for me is like I think what we look at it is like how do we remove the friction of buying and selling, right, through AI and agents now. So we built the demos as one central piece. We are building multiple products. We're launching one of them early next year now. And then now we have things that we're planning out for later next year as well. So we're like now thinking about like how do we move from demos into multi products? How do we do this buying and selling frictionless? We launched last year a hub, basically like from demos we moved to hubs. It's like a deal room where we can bring in, reduce the friction more. Now we are moving more into like how do we bring in AI agents, and which we have launched this year. So how do we productize this now completely into it? So which means like there's a virtual sales involved, and virtual sales demoing your products and things like that. So pretty excited about it, because at the end of the day, our goal is like how do we reduce the friction from buying and selling, right? So the only way that can happen is how do we automate more buying and selling. So now with AI, that's pretty possible quite easily, and that's basically what our focus has been now. And then so I look at it like, hey, in next 12 months, here's our goal where we want to get to as a company, and in terms of revenue targets and everything. And I think now it's more about like how do we achieve those revenue targets through expansions, through new product lines is important, so that we continue to build on top. Yeah.
That's great. That's really nice, and I think it's very common now that every founder is targeting to be in that agentic era of like bringing agents, and because that is solving a lot of problems. So a general question I wanted to ask you, not connected to Storylane, but
Mhm.
any cool AI tool or platform you have come across recently in terms of like, hey, because everywhere there is AI, but there are like some cool tools going outside. Like I'm a huge fan of something which is creating. So like I'm a huge fan of Notebook LM recently. I've been helping with my podcast research, helping with my work. But anything cool you have come across from a AI perspective?
There are a few of them. I think I use like the ones that I use. I can tell you. I use like note take like that. Everybody uses note takers and
Yeah,
everything.
yeah, yeah.
I've recently used Gronera. It's been pretty good for my own personal note taking and everything. I started using now a dictation apps, right? So there are a few out there in the market, so that I'm so while I'm driving, how do I communicate something? We are a remote company, and to me, the most important thing is like I'm dropping my kids, I'm picking them up in the evening. Like I spend like 30 minutes in the car. Like I don't want to be only doing nothing other than driving. I want it to be connected so that I can talk, I can put notes in there, I can send Slack messages. So there are apps now that does that. Like Whisperflow is one of them. There are a couple of other competitors of them as well who do that. So I tried few of them. So I think I use Whisperflow now quite a bit there. So all of these little things matter, like to make you more
Mhm.
productive. That's basically where I focus on. And then for I mean, like you all use emails. Like email is one big thing. I've moved to Superhuman, which is like email sending has to be connected to my inbox, CRM, and everything. It's like how do you make yourself more productive? You have to look at it like, can I? How do I save
True.
myself 15 minutes today through some automation? That's it.
That
Keep
is
incrementing
true.
that. That's all
That is
I
true.
do.
I think your last point, which brings me to another tool which I'm using, is Reclaim. It's a calendar app,
I
and
haven't done that yet.
it's
I should do
yeah.
that.
So it's connected to my work Gmail as well, and my work Gmail is connected to Slack. So automatically it will, using the algorithm, it's going to see that hey, he has a lot of calls in this time, so
Mm,
automatically it will put some buffer of like 15 minutes, like take a
I
break or
like
like
that.
drink water or something, which is also reminding me that I have to drink water at that time, otherwise I'll be on back-to-back meetings and not taking good care of my health. So it's a really cool tool, which
I
is
like
like
that. Yeah,
something, yeah.
I should do that. Yeah, I should do that. 100% makes sense. Cool.
Cool. So one last question before we let you go is
Yeah.
like, and this is something which I'm getting different answers, but I'm very fascinated with this question after the end of this conversation. It's like if you met your 25-year of Nalin version, what one piece of advice you would give him? And that could be anything around the life.
Oh, I would say a 25-year-old version. What I was doing, I'm thinking now. I was basically I was in Bangalore. I was going to be after graduation from college. I was focusing on coming to grad school and studying. So not bad. So if I have to give him that advice today, I would say like just start something, get into entrepreneurship or start something and shoot for the biggest moonshot at this point quickly. One thing I would say is the more you delay it, I think it adds more constraints and the risk taking appetite slows down over time. Right. Today, like I might have like a family, kids, and everything. So you still take risks with startups, but then you don't swing so hard. You need to know what the balance is. You have optionalities. The early in your career, don't care about optionalities, just go for it, right? And if you delay it, if you think there are constraints, the constraints are never going away, right? It's always there throughout your life, right? That's one advice I would tell if I'm meeting 25 or 17 or anybody. No, yeah,
That's really good. I think that comes to the opportunity cost. I think it's like the
yeah,
opportunity cost will always be higher if you take more time. So
100%.
the better. Uh,
People
awesome.
advise that, but I don't think people get it. That's the problem, right? You learn, you become wiser over time. That's probably what it is. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's true.
yeah.
Opportunity cost.
Absolutely. Well, Nalin, thank you so much for taking the time. We really loved hearing your journey from those early career risks to building Storylane into what it is today. And for for our listeners, like I think what one thing which I can capture from our conversation is like every big story starts with a small step or like a brave decision. So uh, will definitely appreciate your time, and I hope we can do another sort of like podcast episode to see find out more about Storylane after a year or two, and let's keep figuring out things. So thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me, Jeet, and it was fun chatting with you.
Yeah, absolutely.